Christy, Diane pulled together was all these different threads, the Polina, the way that these different things are pulled together. And she recognized that for us, the special thing was the stories that we're sharing and that we're pushing forward. And we are a community that's built on story, on Mo'olelo. And that's one of the things that we're trying to make sure that it's Waimea's Mo'olelo, it's our island's Mo'olelo that's being shared. That it's not someone from the outside, that's coming in and telling our story. And so it's so crucial that we're a part of this. And it's something that we're trying to imbue. And in doing this, when Julia and I were speaking the other day, we realized that, the Venn diagram, right? The one circle over here, the other circle over here, that occasionally you have that little middle part in there. David Bernstein is our little piece of the middle. So we're so glad that he was available to come and join us this morning. So with that, I would love to turn it over to Julia. You offloaded the keiki.
I did.
The baby.
But they might show up at any time.
They do that.
Okay, so this is just my short little intro, and then okay. So hi, I'm Julia Brotman. I know some of you, it's nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces at this kind of community gathering, as Dan was saying. So I wear lots of hats. My day job is I'm an entertainment and intellectual property attorney for an Oahu-based firm, but I'm so lucky to live here at home in Waimea and do that work remotely. But what I am doing here is working with the Hawaii Songwriting Festival. And so this is a nonprofit organization that was formed actually on Hawaii 21 years ago, and we brought it here to the Big Island 11 years ago when my dad took over. He ran the organization for 10 years with me kind of poking and nudging him from behind, like, I want to do it, Dad, can I take over? And so I became president last year. And what we do, like I said, we're a nonprofit. Our main event is an annual songwriting conference, but we do other events throughout the year. You may have seen us advertising like open mic events, and we show up to stuff like this and try to get as engaged in the community as we can. We're supporting the local music community. And so we focus on songwriting because that's kind of where it all comes from, is the song, right? And everything in music starts with the song and that story. And our objective is to support local songwriters to do whatever it is that they want to do with their careers. But a lot of times they don't know what they want to do because they don't know what options are out there. And so we bring over folks from the mainstream music industry and connect them with our local songwriters so that they can learn about, how does music licensing work? How do I get my songs in a Nike ad or in a movie or in a TV show? Because that's where all the money is. And so and also, developing their craft, and a lot of that comes through collaboration, working together. And so we're all about just kind of bringing people into the fold, bringing people into the conversation, and helping to build our whole, the whole music community, wherever that boundary is. We want to support the local Waimea songwriters first and foremost, because this is, where we're based and where we are. But that extends to, North Hawaii and Hawaii Island and, the state of Hawaii and beyond. And so our conference sees about 200 people who come from all over the place. But I think we had about 12% were from Waimea this year. I want to say 35% from Hawaii Island, 66% were from Hawaii. So, we're a Hawaii-based and focused organization for sure, but everybody can kind of do better and expand and improve when we're connecting with everyone from all over the world. And we'll get into that a little bit more, how that kind of shares the stories and perpetuates our Mo'olelo from here. So that's the medium. That wasn't the short version, that was the medium version. So I'll pass it to Kobe.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kobe Automi Moser. I as well wear a lot of hats, but I am a mama, and I'm a filmmaker, and people like to say storyteller, but I like to say story capturer because I love to capture people's stories, especially around culture, around place. And currently our current project is Eating Our Roots with Chef Ipi Iona. We're in season 2, and so it's all about Hawaii's Big Island farmers, ranchers, fishermen, food producers. We talk about, you take an ingredient, talk about the history of the ingredient, or the early stewards of the ingredient, sort of who is carrying it forward in the modern day, and then Chef Ipi makes a dish with it. So it's such a fulfilling project. We're in our second season. We did really well the first season. We won an Emmy for it, which is really exciting. And, I mean, it's a passion project for all of us. Everybody on our small little crew, we just feel like it's just so important to tell the stories of our place and around water and around food. So, is this where I show the trailer for it?
Sure.
Or do I
Let's
do it
show the
later?
trailer.
Okay. Do you guys want to see the trailer? Yeah. It's on Instagram, so you might have seen it. Let's see if this works.
There's a lot of conversations today about sustainability. And to me, if we don't really get down to the roots of how our kupuna established those systems that allowed them to live and thrive in Hawaii for generations without any external influence, it really goes back to community-based stewardship of ahupua'a.
This is a struggle. This is really hard. Is it going to be around in 5 years? I don't even know.
Water. Do we know where our water comes from?
Is a privilege, so we can talk more about that later. But dig in.
Actually, we're gonna hold on to Dagan.
Okay.
We're gonna hold on to him just for a minute,
Okay.
all right? Don't worry. So, we won't. It's one of those tricks that they do in shows, right? Where they wait, you know, have like the main panel talk, and then they bring in the game changer. Game changer.
Celebrity shot.
So Colby could also be standing up here talking about what I'm going to speak about is the Hawaii Radio Hour at Kahilu. And we started this program up at the beginning of summer. So Colby really has been incredibly busy this summer between shooting the show and then recording with us. The Hawaii Radio Hour was created in no small part because of what happened in Lahaina. This is not something that's, you know, it's something that's been, you know, we talk about different passion projects, and then some are also very mission projects. And that's one of the things that we recognize, that our community needs trusted storytellers. We need people that when a moment of crisis happens, that we have voices, we have people that we can turn to. And it's not something that suddenly happens in the moment. Just as we don't suddenly run out and run a 100-meter sprint and get our results, is when we build up to this, we train for this. And immediately after Lahaina, I was in Lahaina, I was in Olawalu, and I got a call from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. They asked me to teach a class called Indigenous Journalism at the university. And I was like, what does that mean here in Hawaii? And I went out and started working and figuring out this class, Indigenous Journalism, exists in other places. It exists in Oklahoma, it exists in Montana, you know, it exists in parts of Canada. And talked to the professors there that were teaching those classes. And they said, well, what we do is we prepare our students to go report on reservations. It's like, we don't have that here in Hawaii. We live on top of each other. We live in communities. We are all mixed up, right? And so I took that class, stripped away the indigenous part of it, came back to the journalism, and created a class that was called Community Conscious Journalism. And from there we started teaching the class and then realizing, you know, what it was about. It was about the audience, being very, very mindful of the audience that you're reporting for, supplying those stories for, but you're also very mindful of the community that you're taking those stories from. And then on top of it, we also want to be very, very mindful of the person that was gathering that story, making sure that they were going to be able, you know, to effectively tell stories for a long, long time. And so that was the thing. Colby and I bumped into each other at, it was
Island Food Land.
yeah. And I was such a huge admirer of the work that Colby had done with Hometown Legends. And one of the things in there was the stories that we wanted to tell, were the stories, you know, that the Ike Kupuna stories that she shared in Hometown Legends. So important, you know, to what we wanted to do. So then we pulled in this other component where we created the Hawaii Storytellers Fellowship. Now, the gap that we saw in working at the university is that the students were not prepared to then go into the newsrooms quite at that point.
And that's when we brought in our third co-host, Mileka Lincoln. Mileka was born and raised here in Waimea, and she went to HVA, and then she went away to school at USC in Southern California. When she came out of USC, she was not quite ready to go into a professional reporting environment. So she spent a year on a fellowship program at KTLA in Los Angeles and became a super strong reporter. And she was able to get a great job reporting in Austin and then in San Antonio, then in Austin. And fortunately, she was able to make her way back home to Hawaii. And that was the crucial part, was that she was being seasoned, to teach or to learn how to properly tell stories. That's what we recognize, that program does not exist here in Hawaii, which is why we import so many of our journalists. Just as we import all our food, we import our journalists, our storytellers, which becomes a difficult thing in moments of crisis. Why do we trust, the person that's telling the story? So this is what we're building towards, is that we want to create Hawaii's next generation of trusted storytellers. We have started up this fellowship program thanks to the generous support of our grantees, including Hawaii Community Foundation. And we've been nurturing and coaching and training them to become our next storytellers. So when we do end up having the next great crisis here, just as we just had the tsunami alert, right? And that's our big fear, is what happens in those moments of crisis. We need to turn to trusted sources. And that's the moment when we're in this super precarious place right now. We were talking the other day about tsunami. Everybody was here for the tsunami crisis, just as many of you were here in 2007 for the missile alert, right? Many of you, of course, were here for the wildfires. Right now, our big crisis, and this is something that we were facing, is that moment when the governor said at 7:15, the first wave should arrive. The tools and capacity right now, and so everybody was scrambling about traffic jam down in Hilo. We were pretty good up here, except for the road coming back in, but everybody was out of the way. What if on social media there had been an AI-generated image of a huge wave hitting Hanalei Bay that came from nowhere? That's the big fear right now for so many people, is what happens when this information, we already have so much misinformation that came from Lahaina afterwards, but the number one thing that was missing in Lahaina was, in the moment, there were more than 100 people, the families of more than 100 family, 100 ohana, that needed that information to say, get out of the way, move. That's the big crisis that we're facing right now, is how do we deliver that information to people? Now, the Hawaii Radio Hour is not that part of this problem. This is the fun part of that. We get to do the news and variety part of it. But what we're doing is we're training up the next Mileka Lincolns, right? We all saw Mileka, during the volcano, right, in 2018. That this is what we need. We need the people that you can turn to, the people that you know are from here. That's what they learned in Los Angeles when the fires happened there. Their reporters got up there and said, hey, I'm over by the Unocal station, over here in the Palisades. If you are south of here, you need to get out of the way. This is where the fire is. This is the part that we need, is we need those people that you can trust. And so that's what we're doing our best to create them. There's one of them that's about to walk through the door. It's from here, Mehealani Wave. She's one of our fellows. But we're concentrating on people that graduate from high school here, people who know this area, people that you can trust. So with that, I want to pivot. Sorry for being so heavy on that. Because that's what we're after here, and that's why we've been so fortunate to have the support of like the Hawaii Community Foundation. And this is a project that was pretty much all built off of what was asked for in the Waimea Futures program. Yes? Oh, louder. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Happily. So what we want to do is we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling and why this is such a important part of our community. And one of the things that I love that Julia is working on with this is so much of our story is captured in song. So much of our most forceful messages are in song. And everybody, oh, it's such a thing. And then you listen to the lyrics, right? And we're like, whoa, what did they just say? Could you talk a little bit about the storytelling and the component of the songwriting that goes into that?
Yeah. Do you want me to stand up again?
Maybe I don't think we're being loud enough.
Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, like it all starts with the song, right? And so it's so important to our organization, and I think to everyone in the community, to nurture those storytellers who communicate through song. I mean, we saw that with what Pumaya was teaching us this morning with the Maika'i Waimea song, and it's just such an important part of any culture. But if people are not learning how to do it and learning how to express themselves in that way, then that dwindles and dies, and we don't have as much of it. And so, we see culturally, especially in the Hawaiian culture, songwriting is a very important part of, you see families, all gathering around with the ukulele and stuff. And but then a lot of times people are like, oh, well, that's just something I do at home with my family. I don't, I only do that with Hawaiian music, or, but if I want to listen to this kind of music, I'm going to look elsewhere for that. And so, what we try to encourage is for people to not box themselves in, and really think about, like, make the music that you want to make the music that you want to hear. Here are the skills and tools and how to do that and become a better songwriter, grow your confidence in this area. And then through that, we're seeing more stories being told and shared in more different ways. Another big key component for us is collaboration. And so this is like throughout the mainstream music industry, collaboration is huge. If you look at a Beyonce song, it is not Beyonce. It is like, 20 people who worked on that song. But because of that, everybody's bringing in their own perspectives and ideas, and the end product is something that no one person could come up with on their own, but the entire process and everyone involved in it is enriched because of what everyone has to offer. So what we've seen is that when our local songwriters are then connecting with other songwriters, whether it's each other or songwriters from, other the continent, anywhere around the world, they bring this really unique, interesting perspective, whether they're writing Hawaiian music or not. They're sharing their life story. They're sharing what they've learned being here, and just the mana that we all have from being a product of Waimea. And what we've seen is that people, who are not from here, who have been engaging with us in our community, are noticing that. And we have a bunch of people who are, music licensing executives and music publishers now, who see Waimea as a hub for music creation and music licensing, because they know that what comes out of Waimea sounds different. Not just because of the Hawaiian music influence, but because the stories are different. And it's all, like, if you're a creative person, right? Like, the art that you're going to create that day, it depends on how you feel when you wake up. It depends on the conversation you have with your mom that morning. Like, it's all part of it, right? And so the energy here, as we all know, is super special, and it's really neat to see that kind of recognized by the larger music community that we've been engaging with over the last couple decades. And then also, we can touch on this more later, but seeing that result in people actually making money and being able to then further sustain their music career and continue telling those stories. So I can keep going, but
Can I ask you a quick question? So,
Sure.
So the songwriting that goes into this,
Yeah.
when they come in, what's the structure? Are they?
Yeah,
Do
so-
they have?
So at our event, we don't. People end up writing a lot at our event, but we're not putting people together and saying okay, you guys are going to go write a song. That's not what our conference is. We're more about. We do have some songwriting skills, where it's kind of tips and tricks, or how to, if you're stuck on a chorus, how do you figure this part out, or what makes a catchy melody, things like that. But what we're trying to encourage is just people connecting and getting inspired. And what we find is, so our event is at Hapuna. It's a 3-day event, and there are people who don't sleep the entire time because they're going to the conference all day, and then they stay up on the beach all night writing music together. There people are jamming, in each other's hotel rooms, in the hallways. There are people with guitars everywhere, just kind of working together. And then, of course, the idea is that then those collaborations are not just happening at the conference, but they're happening, all year round. And so, so we're just building that network. And did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Okay.
I was just wondering like what the
Yeah,
process
so
was.
so that's our main event. We do have something that hasn't happened in the last couple years. It was a state-funded project that I guess maybe they don't have funding for right now, but it was kind of what you were getting at, which is they call them in the industry songwriting camps, which basically is like you spend a few days with a group of songwriters and producers, and you go in a room together, and it's like, okay, we're gonna write a song today, and then tomorrow we're gonna be with mix up the groups, different group of people writing a song, and so you come out of a week-long program with like 25 new songs. Which then you're pitching for licensing opportunities and stuff like that. So we did have a program like that we were doing, and we have done kind of unofficially, but at my dad's studio, kind of non-state sponsored versions of that, where really it's just groups of people who met at the conference who say, hey Chucky, can we come do a writing camp at your studio? And so we'll get together a bunch of the local Waimea songwriters, a couple of folks will fly out from LA, Portland, and Nashville, or whatever, and then they get in the room together, and the way that these writing sessions usually go is someone will say, either they have a prompt where it's like, oh, Apple needs an ad and they want it to sound like this, and they do it like that, or it's like, hey, what do you want to write about today? Well, I don't know, what's going on in your life? And if everybody lives in LA, it's like, well, I sat in traffic and my Starbucks ice melted, whatever. But when you're here, it's like Kalaya Parish is like, oh, I had to tune my guitar, but I had to go feed the pigs first, and then my uncle called and he wanted me to go brand cattle and Ka'u, so I had to, so the stories are just different, the experience is different, and then that's usually what turns into the song, or is the inspiration, or just gets the conversation going. And that's why folks who are writing with people here are like, oh my gosh, your world is so different than ours, and we love that, and there's so much more depth to the experiences here. Not to say that other people are shallow, but it's just different. It's so much more enriching and interesting. And then musically, the musical influences are different also, because people here grow up with different instruments and slack key and all of that. So even if that's not, you're not saying we're going to write this kind of, traditional Hawaiian song, you just hear it in the music that comes out. Someone who knows more about music theory could probably explain it a little bit. So,
Thank you.
that,
Well, what she was talking about was the inspiration, right? The motivation to move. And that's what Eating Our Roots is, especially season 1. And was about bringing forward the different producers and then really centering around this other mission, which is, where our food comes from. Same thing that, that Molai was just speaking toward, was this club. So that's the mission, right? So how are you pulling it off?
Stand up. Okay. How are we pulling off the mission? We are talking to people in our community, because going into Eating Our Roots, I was pretty naive. I was like, I didn't know anything about farming. I can't even keep a single plant alive in my house. I would just go to Foodland and buy my whatever was on sale. But as we were moving into talking with people who are actually growing our food, we're like, it's a master class, honestly, on where food comes from, and even things that you buy at the grocery store, if you don't know or if you don't care to understand where it's coming from, it's like, okay, we're supporting like somebody else's economy somewhere else and not ours. And so we are learning a lot, and that's really inspiring us to keep going. I mean, even down to like macadamia nuts. Like back in the day, the Hamakua side was just covered with macadamia nut trees, and then a company came in, I'm not going to name any names, and then started producing Hawaiian macadamia nuts, but are bringing those macadamia nuts in from Africa for pennies, and it's really hurting our macadamia nut farmers. Macadamia nut farms are closing down left and right. That's affecting our pig farmers. It's all connected. Even talking about this morning, Pomai is talking about water, and I just started getting teary because I've been in such this editing cave. I'm like, there's a lot going on, but I've had to just like push those noises aside just to focus on editing, and I've been editing the first episode of the show, which is water, and I'm like, it's just it was just one of those like moments, confirmation, like what I'm doing is important and it's supporting our water protectors and our farmers, our community, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if I answered the question, but it's inspirational just to learn about what's going on in our community, and when it comes to food, what's hurting our community. And so I had no idea. I've learned so much. I feel like I could teach a class on it, honestly.
But instead you've done something better and you created a documentary series. That's incredible.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the thing though, is that it changed the way that you go into a grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't necessarily change the way, I know a little bit about this, just because we've had this conversation, but the way that you cook, right? And that you think about the ways that, when you go into KTA, Foodland, or over to the natural food store, what you're seeing on there is because of who you've spoken to and the stories that you've heard. It's been the story that's changed it, right?
Right.
It's not the
Exactly.
piece of fruit or the vegetable that's there. It's the story behind it.
Yeah, the understanding of what goes behind our food and everything we consume. I mean, one of the ingredients that we have this season is honey. And I would just go and buy like the Costco honey, and then I'm like, I think it's from Hawaii. It looks like it's from Hawaii. It's definitely packaged and probably says Hawaii. And then if you look in the back and like really do the research and like even Google like where is this company from, it's like corn syrup sometimes. It's corn syrup disguised as honey or flavored as honey, and I'm like, whoa. And that's like so many different products are like that. And even if it says, there are companies that import stuff from like Thailand or Vietnam and then put it in a Hawaii looking package and they don't say made in Hawaii, but it looks like it's made in Hawaii. So like the average consumer would probably be like, oh, I'm supporting local. Sometimes they say like brought in from Vietnam and sometimes they don't. And so that's just educating the consumer is also a big inspiration because it's really educated me as a consumer, and maybe not so much as a cook. I don't cook. But I think a lot of people just like me didn't know about that, so that's a big part of the show too, and just supporting our local farmers that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of, where the stories, really do make a big difference about where you are and who you're buying from. And that's the same thing too. Is also that's the lovely thing that Auntie, that Omai, was talking about was having too much fruit, right? Is that going off and then sharing, the excess, that we have. That's the beautiful thing that we have here in Waimea. Is that, it's I think the technical term is autonomous exchange. Where you have there's a wonderful children's book, Too Many Mangoes, where the kids go off with the wagon and they end up coming back with trading throughout the neighborhood, and they come back with muffins and everything for a wonderful breakfast. And that's the part that when we learn, okay, who are these people that are sharing? Who are these people that are producing? And then can we kind of move past some of the middlemen that are in there? And really just start exchanging what we have.
Yeah, I mean, like what Julia was saying about the economic piece. A lot of these farmers grow so many things, but they'll just give it away, and with such generous hearts. But then at the same time, it's like they can't survive living in Hawaii, the most expensive place to live. By doing that, you would hope. And same thing with like what we do. It would be amazing if I could just do the passion work and the things that I really want to work on, like eating our roots, but the economic part is tough.
Right, the reciprocity part is
Right. It's not like a clear, like if I go to a job, I get paid X amount of money. It's, I think for a lot of us in the creative industry, it's a little gray.
Well, I wanted to talk really quickly, thank you, about our show and the way that we've set this up. It's patterned off of the way that Hawaiian newspapers used to be set up at the end of the 19th century. I think you've heard this citation that more than 90%, there was a more than 90% literacy rate. And one of the big parts of this was obviously the church, but then also these great things called newspapers that existed here in Hawaii. And there were so many of them, and so many of them were printed in different languages, and they shared such great information. But when you looked at these newspapers, they weren't like our conventional newspapers that we have right now. Instead, they were this wonderful mix of, of course they would have, this ship just sailed into, Kauai Harbor, but they would also have a myth, a story, that was from, our community, or even like an Aesop's fable, that they would print those. But then they would also pull in different stories from our community. And it was just such a wonderful mix, and people loved reading these things. And recognizing that, well, the conventions that existed at the end of the 19th century, and looking at what we have today with our modern newspapers, that was not, what we see today, what's called objective journalism, was not created, was not implemented until 1922. There's a guy named Walter Lippmann who introduced it to the American Society of Newspaper Editors. And so that was 1922. The last Hawaiian newspaper, it's long term, Hawaiian newspaper was published in 1922. There was never an overlap on these. And so we wanted to find out, well, what would be an entity that could produce this? No one in their right mind starts a newspaper in 2025. What we do is podcasts and radio programs. And since we're in the car all the time, here on this island, driving around, but not getting stuck in traffic, so we said, well, let's create a radio program. And one of the fun things that had happened, and this is where Dagan's going to get queued up here, is that we did a fun event with Colby and Dagan, probably, it's almost 2 years ago, or 18 months ago, where there's a program that's called The Moth that's on Hawaii Public Radio. They're about to bring it back next week in Honolulu. And we ended up doing a version of that at Kahilu Theater. And it was a wonderful night of storytelling. And people kept on asking, when are you going to bring that back? It's like, well, we're not. We're going to Hilo next, and then we're going to go to Honolulu, do storytelling there. But that was always something that kind of sat with us. And fortunately, we talked to Kahilu and said, we want to bring this program back. We want to do a news and variety program, kind of a prairie home companion of the Pacific, kind of idea where we have, news and variety. And I happened to bump into Dagan at the Ace, and I was like, Dagan, let's get the bands back together again, all right? And Dagan had this amazing story that I'm hoping that he will share with us now, that really kind of captures the spirit of what we're after. We take the Ike Kupuna, we take the mele that's sung on stage at Kahilu. That includes the best parts, like when they retune the guitars and get them going, stuff that's not on your playlist. And then we have interviews. We doing an interview this week with John DeFries, the head of the Mauna Kea Oversight Authority. So, but our favorite part is that we finish every show with a local community storyteller. And Dagan was our very first one, and it was such a special thing to be able to share his Mo'olelo and Mele. That's the great part about this. So Dagan, would you mind reprising this a little bit for us?
Sure. And, aloha kako. My name is Dagan Bernstein. I'm a musician and educator. I'm raised here on Hawaii Island. Originally from the district of South Kona. I grew up in Honaunau on a coffee avocado farm, no TV, outhouse, water catchment tank, the whole nine, and very blessed with that upbringing. And then I moved up to Waimea when I was in middle school. My dad got hired to, he's semi-retired, but the computer network manager at HPA, where myself, my brother, and my sister went to school. And where I now work, I'm the capstone coordinator at the village campus, at the campus here in town. So I'm gonna try and, I know the theme, I guess I'm the Venn in the Venn diagram. I didn't know, I thought the Venn diagram was just the diagram. I didn't know that there was a Venn. So I'm gonna try and kind of Venn diagram here. I think, I was thinking about this as I was listening. My life is a little bit of a Venn diagram, I think. I wasn't born here. I was born in a little town in Pennsylvania. Both my parents are born and raised in New York City. But they moved here when I was really young. I was 5 years old. They sold everything, came here, and very blessed to have been raised here. And so, I've always grown up with my foot a little bit in two worlds. I grew up going to public school and then came up to Waimea, went to a private school. and kind of lived in between those worlds. And then now, you know, I'm Haole, I'm Caucasian, but I'm very much of this place. This place is of me, and I consider myself from this place. So I've done 2 stories here that Naka has invited me to share. One was for the Hawaii Civil Beat event, and I shared about my experience actually leaving home to go to college after I graduated from HPA, and returning home and this kind of yearning to come home. And I composed a song from that experience called Ho'ale, I'm Coming Home. And you know, I'm also going to try and tie in a little bit with, like Julia was saying here, us as musicians and songwriters here in Hawaii, and us telling our stories. And part of that story, I shared a lot about how I discovered my love for Hawaiian music when I did leave home, and being in Oregon and this yearning for home, and how I brought with me my collection of Gabi Pahinui and Hui Ohana, and you know, all the good stuff with me, and I really fully immersed myself in Mele Hawaii while I was away. And when I came home, I started to explore my identity as a musician playing Mele Hawaii, and I eventually was very blessed to kind of be taken under the wing by a gentleman named Claiborne Smith, also known as Brada Smitty, who is one of Gabi Pahinui's nephews, and who played in the Sons of Hawaii with Eddie Kamai and the whole gang. And I was able to play with him for about 5 years before his untimely passing in 2012 at the age of 60. And I learned a lot. I learned everything, actually, from playing with him. So I always make sure when we talk about Ike Kupuna, I mean, everything I learned about Mele Hawaii, I learned from Brada Smitty, and from all the musicians I was very blessed to play with because of you know, this mentorship that he blessed me with, and people I would have never dreamed to get to play with and just get to talk story with. People like Dennis Kamakaki, Ledward Kaopana, Sunny Lim. I mean, the whole gamut of just kind of the who's who of Hawaiian music that I grew up just idolizing. And the one thing that I really took from that experience with Brada Smitty, and this usually came after, you know, 1 or 2 or 20 Bud Lights, is you had to make sure you stuck it out till the end. Is he would always tell me, you know, in his thick Hawaiian pidgin, "Hey boy, you gotta tell your own stories. You can play these songs, but you gotta tell your story." And I always took that to heart. And not only did I take it to heart, you know, it became a kuleana for myself, and a very heavy one. And that really came to fruition in around 2019. I put together my most ambitious album project. That was an album called Song for Waimea, and I composed 9 songs that were about the people, the places of Waimea. And you know, I was drawing inspiration from our places around here, right? So I composed a song about Wailea Bay. I composed a song about Ohaiula. I composed a song about our Paniolo, Ha'aheo, Nakanaka Paniolo. And I also composed the title song from the album called Song for Waimea. And I released that on a CD in 2019. Looks like this. And I brought some copies with me, so I will raffle them off, as in if you want one, grab one. And if I run out, you gotta go find me when I'm playing around town. I'll happily give anyone one for free, or you can stream it on Spotify, whatever. So that was the event that Naka and Kobe and the crew invited me to at Kahilu Theater, was kind of telling the story about this album and kind of how that informed my my songwriting and my musicianship now. Because I recorded this album, I released it, like I said, it was a big project. I went into like a real professional studio. I like hired professional musicians, had a real engineer, had it mastered, and the whole 9. And it was super cool. I had one of the songs was played on Kappa Radio for a little run there, and I had that experience of driving in my truck and hearing a song I wrote and recorded on the radio, like just completely mind-blowing as someone who grew up listening to Kappa Radio. It was pretty amazing. But you know, in that moment, I had this experience of not like wanting to lean into this pathway of songwriting and music as a career per se, but more a part of who I am as a creative individual that I wanted to embrace, and part of my identity as a community member of Waimea, which is kind of what our theme is today. And again, that kuleana became more heavy because I realized as I'm writing these stories and capturing these stories from the people and places around me and putting them in song, and they're now going out into the world, that I have to make sure that my connection to Aina, to people, and to place is very strong, right? Because if I'm going to be putting my name on these songs and talking about these people and places, I can't be just doing it any kind, as we say. You know, it's not going to have an authenticity to it. It's not going to have mana to it, and that's not who I am as a person. So I really leaned more into my songwriting and exploring the people and places around me. And that's what birthed that project, the Ho'ale project. I also wrote a song called Me Ke Aloha South Kona, about growing up in South Kona, as well as a couple other songs on that project. So that brings me to kind of here today, and a new project that I'm working on, that I'm in the process of completing, that I'm aiming to have released in the middle of November. And the birth of this project was this kind of identity I've embraced as being a musician here in Waimea, sharing music in my community, connecting with my community, having this kuleana to share music around Waimea. And I kind of came up with this concept that was a song I had been working on called The Kind Sound. Because people always ask me, like, what kind of music do you play? What kind of music do you play? And you know, we have this phrase here in Hawaii, just the kind, right? I always look at my music, it's just the kind, you know, it's a little of this, it's a little of that, but it's the kind, you know? So I just called this project The Kind Sound. And while I had composed this song called The Kind Sound, and this is kind of new, Naka, you might not know this, but as I was recording the album, I could not get this song. Sometimes there's writing a song and there's recording a song. And in the recording process, me and the producer, we couldn't capture this song. It just wasn't landing right. We listened back to it and it just didn't have the vibe that the other songs had. And my producer was like, hey, like, do you have any other songs? I was like, well, I got this song I've been kind of working on. It's a song I'm going to play today. And it was a huge creative stretch for me, and it's a new direction I'm exploring creatively, and I'm doing this with total humility because it's something that's very new to me, which is actually composing music in Olelo Hawaii. Because all the songs I've written may have phrases in Olelo Hawaii, might have, you know, references or place names that are in Olelo, but I actually wanted to really stretch and challenge myself to write the song in Olelo Hawaii. And actually the song didn't start that way. And I actually went back to see where the origins of the song came from. And so the name of the song, the big reveal is the name of the song is Ke Ala Kahawai o Waimea. So that's another Venn diagram I'm going to draw here with the theme of Vai that Kobe was talking about, and then the songwriting of place that Julia was talking about. And if you know, we have our streams along Waimea and those beautiful pathways that Clem has been spending years and years and thousands of hours working on. And growing up here in Waimea, you know, and a lot of you walk along those streams, walk along those pathways. And it's a great place of meditation and inspiration and just connection, kind of. And I just started humming this melody. It's how a lot of my songs originate from on my phone. I have just hundreds of just random voice messages of melodies or lyrics. And I went back and I wanted to find that, I gave you chicken skin last night. I wanted to find that voicemail. It was actually 1 year ago tomorrow that I hummed that first melody on my phone. But originally the song was in English. It was in Olelo Haole. It was just built around what it is. Newsflash. And it was written, you know, how I typically write songs. But again, I wanted to challenge myself. You know, as an artist, I think it's important as a creative to always challenge yourself and try new things. And, you know, as someone who's not a native speaker, who, you know, didn't grow up speaking Olelo Hawaii, but as someone who has spent years listening to and embracing and absorbing Mele Hawaii and the poetry of Haku Mele, of writing songs in Hawaiian, it was something I wanted to pursue. And so I do what I think most artists do, which is you kind of find things and you piece something together and you do your research. And that's what I did. I went back and in kind of all the songs about Waimea, and I looked for phrases and themes and poetry. And I also found one kind of key to unlocking this song was an article that Ku'ule Kekealani wrote for Keola magazine like 15 years ago. I found it online. And she wrote this story about, it's about Aloha Aina, it's about being in Waimea. And she had written a little couplet about the waters of Waimea. And so I borrowed that and kind of fused that into the song. And so I kind of pieced together this mele. And, you know, it's very basic, it's very rudimentary, because as someone who appreciates Hawaiian poetry and Hawaiian songwriting and the complexity that is being infused into Mele Hawaii today is really, really amazing, from the songwriting that's happening by contemporary musicians and then back to kind of the 60s and 70s and before. So this is just kind of my first step to exploring this, and I now have this kuleana of learning more. I'm putting this out into the world, and but it's my first step towards expanding what I do. And what I want to end with before I play the song is there are things in these words that can only be communicated in Olelo Hawaii. And that's kind of the key here. There's limits to what the English language can do to describe this environment, right? And that was kind of the key to unlocking what I was trying to do in this song. So I was trying to channel things and words and feelings and emotions and sensations that only can be captured in Olelo Hawaii. And I think that's kind of what has drawn us all here today and inspires us as community members in Waimea, are those things that are unique to here, that only could happen here. The work that Kobe's doing, that it can only happen here, right? When she's talking about these stories and these foods and what Ippy's doing, it's grounded and rooted here. This songwriting that Julia is helping to support and foster by all these musicians around Hawaii, you know, Kenny Tagavilla and Kamaka Camarillo, like these people are writing music about here and are gathering here to share and express their stories. And I think it's a real beautiful thing, and definitely humbled to be part of that web of inspiration that's happening here in Waimea. So with that, I think I'm gonna play the song for all of you, if that's okay. If I still have time. Again, I'm aiming for middle of November to have this.
So the album is going to be called.
The album, I'm gonna keep the album title. It's gonna be
Okay.
called The Kind Sound, even though
Okay.
the song The Kind Sound did not make the cut. Might just end up being one of those rare B-sides.
And we'll look
Collect
for it.
those.
And we'll look for it in November. And in the meantime, you're going to be playing this song before it comes out, all over the place where you're playing Brewhouse,
Trying, yeah,
Farmers
Farmers
Market,
Lonnie's Tables,
yeah.
Farmers Market,
Yeah.
Ponacala Public House, just around Wheeler Records, you know, the usual spots.
Fantastic. Well, mahalo for sharing that wonderful So, we just got the high sign that we have a couple minutes left. We wanted to quickly, if anybody has any questions, we'd love to answer them before we go into our last topic. All right. Okay. So the last thing we wanted to talk about, and this is something that Julie and I were getting into a little bit in our conversations, is about creating economic opportunities, for storytellers and trying to make sure that we have an opportunity, to keep those storytellers and that they have just a way to stay here in Waimea. Obviously, that's the big challenge. You were talking about some of the different ways that you're encouraging your storytellers, your songwriters, to create those opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our organization, we primarily see as kind of a economic development program. That was one of the main buckets that we received Richard Smart grant funding for, is because of what the work that we're doing in this space. And it's so hard in the creative industries because you guys are pouring your hearts and souls into things, and it's, how do you put it, we were talking about this earlier too, how do you put a value on that, right? So I will get on my soapbox a little bit because especially, each industry has its own challenges. In the music industry, I will say, streaming, when streaming came out, 10, 15 years ago now, it just tanked the amount of income that someone could get. And so the kind of business model in the music industry has shifted, and where people are making a lot of money is, live performing, touring, which is really hard for folks who are from here, because it's an even heavier lift, right, to get to wherever it is that you're going and, support a live tour. And then music licensing is another huge way that we do this. And so a lot of people who kind of grow up with music in their family, in their community here, don't understand that world. It is a very, there's a lot of jargon we talk about, sync licensing and pitching, and, there's all this stuff, and it's hard to, it's intimidating, and it seems hard to break into. And so what our organization does is try to, break down those walls, break down those barriers, make it accessible to people. And we are so lucky to be supported by a lot of, mainland, mainstream companies who are working in the LA, Portland, Nashville music scenes, who are, doing that licensing work every day, and they know the value of the music because they're seeing it. That's how their businesses are run. But a lot of times we don't see it here, and I notice, another example is, I have a lot of clients who will do, they're trying to license their music for local companies, First Hawaiian Bank or Hawaiian Airlines or whatever, and I see how much money these guys are offering, and I'm like, hey, ask for more money, ask for more miles, whatever it is, but and it's, right? That's what I tell my husband too. But it's, and the whole community has to come together and recognize the value in that, and we talk about this in the film industry, in the visual arts. It's so easy to just take that stuff for granted, but the creators in our community, and this is where I always get emotional about it, it's the creators in our community give so much to us, and they enrich our lives in so many ways, and they're doing it not, I don't know, I feel like the work that I do, it's I sit at a computer and type contracts, that, but these guys they're really are pouring their hearts and souls into it, and in a way that I cannot do. I don't have that capacity. I'm not a creative person. I can't do that. But it's so important and so enriching for our community and our culture. And so I guess my soapbox is pay people, go to the shows. Kihilu Theater is right in town, and so many of you are part of the Kihilu Ohana in one way or another, and they're doing such amazing work to support the local musicians, the gallery. They have an exhibit opening today that's supposed to be just incredible. The storytelling that's happening there, that's right in our right in our backyard. And these creative folks are out there in our community doing all kinds of things, and supporting them and helping folks understand how hard it is. But we want these people to be able to stay here and be part of our community and be here, and our organization is really proud to say that we're helping songwriters to do that. And again, like to the Richard Smart Fund, we wouldn't be able to do it without the grant funding and donor funding that we get. So it's all connected, right? But we can't ignore that economic piece because people don't like to talk about it, but without that, none of this is possible. So I encourage you, if you are a creative person, like don't shy away from it. Know your value. Even if you're discounting someone, I always get on my husband about this. Like, show them what your full rate is, and then get the discount, so that people know the value. And because it's not just about you, it's about everybody else. All the other creative workers in the community too. So okay, I'm gonna give it to Kobe.
I don't really know what I can offer to this because I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm like fully a creative. I'm like, with Eating Our Roots anyway, I'm like, okay, I'm directing, I'm producing, I'm editing, I'm like mixing, and then wait, I need to go find the money and like bid for grants and things like that. I'm like, my gosh, it's like too much. Can I just make the thing? So I know that there are a lot of great people out there who are wanting to support creators like us. I just need to do a better job of reaching out to those people, but I think for other creators, I think we are really driven by our passion. It's definitely not by money. I mean, it is driven by Kuleana, and I think whatever you do in like whatever way that you give back to the community, I really believe that it is. It will come back eventually. I'm like, I realize how, yes, I realize how important this project is. I just saw one of the people that we featured in season 1, and he's a coffee roaster, and I saw him at the airport, and he was like, the amount of business I got after the show aired, he's like, we couldn't have ever like market our way into that, like, and we don't charge people to be a part of the show. We really find out through our community members who are the people who are really making a difference in their own like industries, and that's how they get chosen to be a part of the show. But just hearing stories like that, I'm like, oh, this is the reason why we do it. And so
But you deserve to get paid.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. How are we doing on time?
I think we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
How do we get to see like season 1 and season 2?
Oh,
of
okay,
the
good
show?
question. Yeah. So season 1 of Eating Our Roots is online at hawaiinewsnow.com. So just like Google Eating Our Roots and all the episodes are there. There's 8 episodes, and then the second season goes on to K5 next week Saturday at 8 o'clock. But if not live on K5, it goes on hawaiinewsnow.com.
Hi, Hawaii News.
hawaiinewsnow.com. There's a landing page that's Eating Our Roots, and then all the episodes are there. It's really exciting to be able to feature our Big Island farmers.
How can we listen to your music?
My website's daganmusic.com. That's DAGAN. Or Instagram at Dagan Music. You can find me there. And on my website, I have my live music schedule if you want to come see me in person. Next, I don't know.
Aren't you gonna reload like an hour?
Right, I've been moonlighting as a DJ, specifically playing Hawaiian vinyl. So I will be at Wheeler Records this afternoon, playing Hawaiian vinyl at the record store there. But Thursday, I will be in Honoka'a, and then Saturday I will be at Pukalani Stables Farmers Market. So those are my
Thank you. I don't know if any of the funding goes to you, but you also have a premiere for the first episode
Oh
next Friday.
yes,
so
thank you for mentioning that.
Support.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. We do have a premiere event that's open to the community. Tickets are $50. It's at Manalani Auberge. It's very fancy. We're going to be showing a few segments of the show there, and then all the cast and crew will be there. So come down and have some food and drinks and a great evening. Next week, Friday.
Right.
So October 3rd.
And you can buy tickets
You can buy
On her
tickets on Manalani Aberge's website, but the link is also on our Instagram page. So, and if you have trouble finding it, then please
Are you
contact
gonna
me.
get paid for it?
Don't worry about that.
No, but it's exciting to be able to share with the community. That's the whole purpose of it.
You don't have the big tip bucket.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Not the Mickey.
Can I ask a question of this group real quick? How many of you guys consider yourselves like creatives, storytellers, type people? Yeah, loud and proud. Come on. Cool.
We need them.
So-
Yeah, we need them. I know.
So what just happened was that Colby and I just looked, and so we're gonna really pitch our. We have so much going on here in Waimea, which is such a lovely thing. This is something that Dagan, in his Mo'olelo, was sharing this. It's just about, Waimea used to be such a thriving town. There was all sorts of music that was going on just every single night. And that's part of, we're trying to bring this spirit back where there's something that's always, seemingly happening here in this great community. And so our thing is that we have Sharing Mo'olelo. So that's where our community storytelling event is going to be. And we've done the math. We figured we can do this show for about 200 years before we exhaust all the storytellers. And our thing is that when you see somebody in the grocery store, we don't want you to know them by face necessarily. We want you to know them by their story. And so that's why we've gotten people to come up on stage and, just as Dagan did, share about a 10-minute, true story. We ask for the true story. Sometimes that happens. We got a couple people that have really taken a lot of liberties with the truth, but they've been great stories. And so we're going to be doing this on October 16th. Dagan mentioned Wheela. They do a lounge takeover, and they do a little jazz club in front of us. So on October 16th, we know our storyteller. We have a bunch of storytellers, including Elizabeth Pickett, who has a phenomenal story. She's the head of the wildfire. Hawaii Wildfire Management, and she has a story that it's incredible. I cannot wait for her to share it with us. Dana Wong is going to be one of our storytellers who does the Naupaka, does the Keck story.
It's a surprise.
Yeah, we had some fun with our surprises too in our past story. So we invite you guys to come out October 16th at Kahilu Theater. Yeah, Kahilu Theater. Kahilu is our Pico. That's where we produce everything out of, and we're so glad to be able to grab and gather people in events like this. This is the special part that we learned after being, separated by COVID. Is that getting people together in nice, well-ventilated spaces. It is so important. So mahalo everybody for coming, and we're so glad to have you. Dagan has his CDs. You have your thing. And real quick, when is the Storytellers Festival?
The songwriting
Yes,
festival?
yeah.
We don't know yet. The next one, it's probably going to be next September. So tell all the songwriters in your lives to have it on their radar, and then for all of you music lovers, there will be a concert also. There always is. So keep an eye for
Where
that.
is this held?
At Hapuna.
Is it all at the Hapuna Press?
It is all ages. Yes. Bring toys for your kids.
Now,
All right.
could I just plug we're the next group that's coming to talk about Mo'olelo, and I think it's going to be